Hey guys, Jack here, and it's another one of my videos that has nothing to do with my podcast and just my fish hobby. But I thought you guys might find this interesting. I finally made good on my threat to turn one of these glass bowls that I picked up at Hobby Lobby on their end of year sale at 50% off, like $10, into basically a 3.5 gallon Nano tank, which I think is kind of cool for $10. I got my Nano light up there. I went ahead and painted this rack and put a back on it. You can see how I did just a piece of plywood, and I did a Krylon Fusion paint for the racks. First time I ever used that stuff, and I got to say now, for most things, if you're going to spray paint something, there's Krylon Fusion and there's everything else. I was really impressed with how that paint went on. I used like the cheap 99-cent paint to paint the background there because, well, you know, it doesn't really matter. It's just a piece of plywood. But I used Krylon on this because it was like a typical finish of a piece of furniture that you buy where it's kind of glossy. And I used a flat black. I didn't want this to be like a glossy black thing, and I kind of dig it. I'm going to probably put some light blocking stuff. I think I showed you guys this on the last video, kind of the difference that makes when you, and it's much better if you do it with a piece of wood. You kind of block out that light so it's not glaring at you and it's focused and down into the tanks. I don't know if I'm going to go through with my threat and do 6 of these, you know. I may do some of the little 2.5 gallon cheapos. I want to do some inexpensive stuff for people that just want to play around with the hobby and see what can be done. You don't need to go out and spend $100 for a 3-gallon tank, which I see people doing. But this is kind of cool. But I don't know exactly how much I'm going to like it as it grows in. If you look at that piece of Anubias, and that, for those that are maybe new to the concept of keeping fish and don't know tropical or aquarium plants, that's Anubias right there. And that's actually Anubias Nano, and it's a pretty small plant. It looks pretty dadgone big. I mean, if you look at it compared to my hand, it looks pretty big. Let me go real quick over here to my other tank, and I'm going to show you. That's just a sprig that I cut off. It'll make a lot more sense for you of this plant right here. So what's going on is that bowl and that shape is magnifying everything. Again, look at the this is right here some Ludwiga, and this is Rotalla Indicia right here. These are just 3 little tip sprigs, and I took those off of this plant right here. So you can see it's actually a much smaller form plant than it looks like over here in the bowl. Alright, so it's definitely making things look bigger, but it's a nano tank, so that's cool. So let me just tell you what it's actually built out of. And again, this rock formation looks a lot bigger than it is. This is kind of cool. That's a piece of lace rock. It's a type of volcanic rock, and it was in my bottom tank over there. So it's been in there for several weeks, so it's colonized with a lot of bacteria. Remember, I'm trying to do this without a filter, and I'm trying to get through a quicker cycle with it. So I had that in there. It's a little bit crowded. I probably have one more piece of smaller lace rock in there. I actually want to get out and make more room for plants to go in the ground. And if I'm going to go ahead and do this one, I'm definitely going to do these 2 and see how they work out. So I got that piece of lace rock. This substrate is made by a company called Carib Sea. And it's, well, it's right here. It's Eco Complete. I've heard good and bad things about it. Whenever I've used it, it's worked really good for me. And another thing with the bowl, so it looks like the substrate is like going downhill. It's not. Again, that's an illusion by the bowl. It's actually pretty even in there. So we've got the Eco Complete substrate. We've got the Anubias Nano. Now that is super glued just onto that rock formation. I just took 2 little dollops of gel super glue, that's kind of an aquarium hack, and held it on the rock just long enough to get it to stick, and now that plant will send out roots and will grab onto that rock. It'll send out roots long enough eventually, probably go ahead and get down into the substrate. You see the little piece right here across the bottom? That is called a rhizome. And a lot of people with Anubias that are just new to the hobby and no one's ever told them, they don't know, they buy an Anubias plant, they go home and they take that rhizome and they stick it down there in the substrate. It'll rot. It'll rot. It needs to be attached to something or right on the substrate. A little hack, if you want it to grow on the ground and root in the ground, but you want to hold it down there, get some small pieces of lava rock and glue that lava rock to your rhizome, and then just set it wherever you want, and eventually it'll root in on its own. So we got the Anubias Nano. We got the Rotalla Indica, and I just cut those tips off that plant I showed you. This is some Ludwiga right here is another plant. And then back in the back, probably and kind of wrapped all the way around, kind of my favorite aquarium plant in the world, Valesnaria. Jungle Val is a particular variety. As you can see, we got a ram's horn snail and some pond snails in here. I think I got a couple ram's horns. There's another one up there. A few pond snails, so I'll have as many snails as I could want. Or probably more eventually. And there's a shrimp. You see a little shrimp up there? There's actually like probably 4 cherry shrimp in here, even though I only set this tank up 2 days ago. And you might wonder why I would put shrimp in here already. And honestly, you probably could not even worry about it. I've also got some Malaysian Trumpet Snails in here. So this is probably going to be a shrimp-based nano tank. Maybe we'll do some sparkling grommies, maybe some chili rasboras. I don't know yet as far as the fish. But what happened is also up top, my favorite floating plant is salvinia, and there's a little duckweed in there with it because wherever one goes in my world, the other tends to go with it. But I wanted some salvinia, so I just took a little jelly jar and went over to my little red shrimp tank because I've got tons of salvinia in there, and just dipped it in and sucked in the salvinia and dumped it in there. And all the water in this tank came from my other tanks. That way it's already got good balance, good bacteria. That's a hack for quick cycling. No matter what you do, even with a filter, you get water, at least some water from an established aquarium, and then top that aquarium, make it your water change, right? And so we brought the 3 gallons out of the other tanks. 100% of it, since it was such a small tank. Couldn't do it if it was a big tank. And anyway, when I dumped that salvinia in, and I didn't even notice it, and then later, you know, I came back to watch it because it was really cloudy when you first set it up. This Eco Complete will cloud up when you, no matter what you do, no matter how gentle you are, when you first set up a tank with it, it does get cloudy and it settles out. I looked in there and there was a little cherry shrimp hanging out on one of the pieces of Valesnaria. And I just kind of felt like, you know, it's kind of a lonely world for a little shrimp. So I went over with my net and netted out like 3 more. So I guess they're all behind Shrimp Mountain now. Which is, I'll tell you one thing, it's not, I'm not going to do it here with only, you know, one hand, but it is real easy to rotate these bowls and see what's going on. The one thing that you will have to do if you use one of these like I did on kind of a short shelf, there's plenty of room to work here. If you need to do a water change, you can do it with a jelly jar. I mean, you take out a few pints of water, there's your 10%. Use the same jar to fill it back up, so that's going to be easy. Little trimmings on the plants, no problem reaching in there. As this grows in and gets like overgrown, and it will, Jungle Val and Rotalla Indica, you're going to go like crazy, and you really need to do heavy aquascaping. You have to take, you know, maybe 1/3 of the water out to make it easier to handle, and then you have to, these bowls, the one thing I'm worried about is breaking them. You got to be careful. This is plate glass; it could cut you bad. Is pick it up by the bottom and then take it like to a work surface to do your major aquascaping. On that, if you try this, when when I did the initial setup, I definitely didn't do it in this spot. It's a small thing, you can move it. It's much easier to be able to get in directly from the top. When I moved it, I had my hands just a little bit wet, and as I set it down, it slipped. Nothing bad happened, but you know, that was a wake-up call. From now on, if I work on these, I'm going to make damn sure the bowls are absolutely dry, my hands are absolutely dry. And, you know, I have some, you know, garden gloves that have kind of a rubber hand surface. If you happen, I wouldn't go buy them, but if you happen to have them, probably wouldn't be a bad idea to put those on because that rubber is going to really help stick with the glass. It's not that heavy. It's just with the shape, it can slip on you. Oh, one more plant. It's the little bitty ones there. That's pearlweed. And it's something I'm working really hard to carpet my my Nano Fish 55 with. But I just got some stuff, just got some of it in. And got it started to grow, so I just took some tips off and just put them in there. And that's the same thing I'll be doing in both tanks. It's just snipping tips and just keep redoing them and try to get it low and try to carpet that in. So overall, I think it's going to be a really pretty tank. I know a lot of you guys that follow me, fish tanks really aren't your thing. But if they are, or if you just have somebody that found me, what are your thoughts from what kind of fish should we put in here? A beta is an obvious thing, but you know, betas are likely, not definitely, but likely to eat our little shrimps, and then it's not a shrimp tank. Sparkling grommies seem like a good idea. I think chili rasboras would be really awesome. They're such tiny little fish, and I don't have to worry about them with the shrimps at all. But what would be cool is when they swim through this area here, having those little fish are awesome looking, but you don't really see them that well. It might actually be cool if they do get a bit of magnification on them. Anyway, I think this is fun. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and figure out what I'm going to do with this one. What I'm actually thinking about doing, one of the things I've been doing with my tanks, and people think I'm crazy for it, I use this product out in my gardens and all over my property. Dr. Earth Premium Gold Organic All-Purpose Fertilizer. And I've been putting it in my substrate. And when I say that, I'm not like mixing it. So when I do a tank, you know, whether it's a big tank, little tank, doesn't matter. The first thing I'll put in is a sprinkling of that stuff. And then I'll cover it with a substrate so it can't get up into the water column. I was going to do it with this one, and guess what? I got in a hurry. I was messing around. I didn't. And I already had it planted and water in it, and I'm like, I'm not dumping it back out. So when I do this one, I'm going to probably do these two very similar, at least the plant types. And I'm going to put the Dr. Earth in here, and we'll be able to look and compare, does it really help with the growth of plants, and specifically what plants does it help, because it ain't going to help the Anubias. So this should be a fun little project. Love to hear your input on where it should go from here. Love to hear your input on what maybe I should do with these other two levels. I'm pretty locked in. I'm putting a 20 long up there. It'll overhang just a little bit. And what I can do is take a piece of 3/4 inch plywood and make it so it doesn't overhang, and paint it black and just attach it to that top, even just sit it there because it ain't going to go nowhere, and it would look like it was built for it. So that's really easy. So I'm probably going to do a 20 long up top, but I got these two other spaces, and it'd be interesting to put side-by-side comparisons of the same thing. So what do you guys think? You know, 2.5 gallons? What do you guys think? Remember, it's got to be something that isn't so tall that I can't work on it. When I had a 10 gallon here, what I did, I put a piece of plexiglass down here, and I slid the tank out to be able to work on it. It was not fun. And some people said, well, you could make a slide out of it. No, I don't want to go that far. I want to do simple little containers. So do we just do 2 more of these and 2 2.5s and little cubes? What do you guys think? What are your thoughts? I've even thought about using those cheap old critter keepers. So let me know what you think. The medium critter keepers are about 2.6 gallons. And I think 2 of them would fit there just fine. And they're right at 8 inches tall, which is how tall these are. Easy to work on. Easy to pick up. Be interesting. Let me know. And if you like this sort of thing, you might also like the other stuff I do on preparedness and permaculture and self-sufficiency and self-reliance and lifestyle design. You can find all of that stuff at my website, tspc.co, where I'll promise you, the one thing you won't get is very much of this. Take care, guys. Have a good day.